everyone. Welcome to or welcome back to Unpacking Potato, the podcast where I, Henny, the self-proclaimed potato, unpack a variety of different topics. Today, I wanted to talk about excitement and fear and reframing fear into something positive. I've been thinking about this a lot today. I actually just recorded a get ready with me lifestyle kind of video, and I talk about how I had this conversation with someone online about how they were expressing that they had a lot of anxiety and fear over posting videos. And I told them that when we care a lot about something, there's a lot of fear and anxiety there because we care so much. And it is something that I've been utilizing for a long time to reframe my mindset over fear and anxiety. I live with anxiety myself. I get very anxious over different situations, and I've had to utilize this skill and kind of cultivate this type of tool to help me reframe and rediscover myself and what my fears actually are and where they root from and stem from, and on what is actually fear and what is excitement. And I'll get into that a little bit later. So let's get into it. So when I was younger, I did dance, I did musical theater, I was in the orchestra. I did a lot of things that had performances on stage involved, and every single time my entire body would just tense up, and I had a lot of anxiety. I had my heart would go crazy, I'd be sweating and like all sorts of other things, and I'm just like, why do I get so scared whereas everyone else seems kind of fine? Reality was everyone was not fine. Everyone was just as scared as I was. But a lot of the time I was like, I don't know what's going on with me. I feel like something's wrong with me. I shouldn't be this scared over this thing. And sometimes even like going to different appointments or social functions, I had this anxiety follow me throughout my whole life. A lot of the time I would kind of ignore it and just push forward and it would be fine. And as I started studying to become a therapist and become a social worker and learn about our body and our mind deeper, I understood and realized that a lot of the time the fear and the anxiety was also mixed in with excitement, because there are actually scientific studies that prove the hypothalamus in our brain, the way it processes fear and excitement is basically the same, and our body reacts in the same ways. So a lot of the time it's really hard for us to decipher whether or not our body functions of the sweating and heart palpitations and all these types of things, whether it's coming from being excited about doing something or because we're actually scared of it and our fight or flight in us starts activating and it's like, do we need to run away from this pretend bear in the woods situation, or are we actually really excited to go on this roller coaster ride or, whatever. And this has been coming up a lot for me recently. As I mentioned earlier, I was talking about content creation with another content creator and how much anxiety they had over content creation. And I do too. I really do get very scared when I post things. And it was the same way when I started my podcast, that anxiety and / excitement of the first couple minutes after you hit post, you're just like sitting there like, oh my God, it's out there, it's on the internet, and you freak out. I had that for a long time and then it stopped. I would post and I go, okay, I posted it, it's over. And hopefully on YouTube, it will be the same. But as of right now, I still get really nervous and anxious when I'm posting something new and filming something new. Like earlier, for example, when I was doing the get ready with me thing. And I do think it'll get better. But for me, I know for a fact that I'm so nervous about it because I care so deeply about it. I set out to do content creation in the form of a podcast back in 2021. I had just left my job as a therapist. I had left the organization I was working in, and it was scary and it was lonely and I didn't know what my next steps were. I knew that I wanted to work with the skills and the education that I had been honing basically for 8 years, but I just didn't know which direction that was. And I also was, like I said, recovering from burnout. So I knew I would need to take a step back and heal and just reset and recover before I could get back into the workforce. So I thought doing a podcast would be a great way to get that psychoeducation out there and to share my own experiences and to share other people's experiences so that other people that were listening to that content could feel less alone, they could feel validated, more supported, and just realize that they're not the only ones going through similar experiences, and maybe they could even gain insight on how other people experience similar things. So I set out to do it and I really just started loving it and got pretty into it right away. I did 1 episode a week for a year straight, and I stopped being super consistent with it when I started traveling because, again, I went through different changes in my life, so I kind of uprooted myself and wanted to travel the world. I had just started solo traveling about 4 to 5 months before COVID hit, and COVID obviously stopped all travels, and so I really wanted to get back into that. So I found it really difficult to keep up with my podcast as I was traveling, so I took kind of a break from it, but would post here and there. And I just learned that I love creating content. I love sharing stories, whether that's my own or the guests that I have on the show or people that write in. And the fear of failing just slowly went away. The more I did it and the more I got feedback of people saying, wow, this certain episode really helped me. This other specific part of this episode, I really resonated with that part. Thank you so much for sharing it. The more validation I got from other people that I was succeeding in what I set out to do, the more excited I was. And it wasn't nerves and anxiety and fear anymore. But my body was still reacting in the same way. I just didn't put the 2 and 2 together until a little bit later when I was like, oh, wow, remember this thing you learned way back in school that fear, anxiety, and excitement all have similar body functions? This is actually happening to you. It's so funny because I've learned all these different things, but to apply it to your own life and to remember and to utilize these skills and to continue is really difficult to do on your own. So with the help of a therapist and with the help of support and talking to friends and that kind of thing, I was able to really get back into what I was doing in a more stable way. I was more grounded in my approach with what I was doing. I was more clear-headed with the direction I wanted to take it. And that's kind of brought me to where I am today with starting on YouTube. And I actually didn't tell a lot of people that I wanted to do this for a long time. I slowly started telling people here and there that I wanted to maybe try YouTube. And it was a way of me to vocalize my goals and my thoughts and almost admit to myself by telling my friends, like the closest of my friends. And it was a huge step in the right direction of actually starting, because this does mean a lot to me. I care a lot about the content that I put out there, and I care a lot about the value that I can provide others. And it's just super fun also to just sit and talk and chat and have like online connections and make a community and reply to comments. Like, I find the whole process super fun. So that's kind of just been what I've been wanting, and I'm just trying to go out and get it. But it's still scary. Like, every time I still post something, I've only posted 4 videos so far. Every time I post it, it is still scary. Every time I talk about it, anytime someone mentions it, I get all like, ah! I'm a pretty outgoing person, but I was at an event the other day and I was talking to someone and they introduced their friend to me, and she said, oh, I saw you on Instagram. I saw, because I started posting snippets from my podcast on Instagram to make reels. And she's like, I saw your reel. I saw you. Like, I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I was totally fine before talking and meeting new people and whatever. And as soon as someone mentioned the podcast, I was like, oh my God. And in my head, I'm like, what did you think about it? Did you like it? Because obviously, when you care about something that you're putting out, you want people to like it and you want it to be received well in the intention that you have with it. You want people to get value and you want people to think that it's good and that it's helpful. So I was like, I really hope she liked it. But it was really cool still to connect with someone in real life. I just find it so cool to have a community where you can be real and authentic and just talk about yourself in terms of your experiences. And that helps other people just feel less alone in life. I think for me, when I first started my podcast, I really needed to feel less alone in my life. I was living with my parents, again, just had quit this job that I had worked so hard towards for 8 years. And I was making new friendships. I didn't know a lot of people because my parents lived in a place where I had not lived in previously. So I was moving somewhere brand new all over again. And I was renovating the part of their house that I was going to be living in. And so I was really busy doing my own thing. And I think at that time in my life, I needed it more than others. Like, I needed to just share my story and have this kind of cathartic experience to feel less alone for me. And I really wanted to connect with people. And I felt consuming content through podcasts and YouTube and things like that was a great way for me, but I still wanted to kind of add into that story and add into that a little bit more. Whereas now I really want to provide more value. I'm not doing it as much as I was for myself. I think now I'm definitely in a much better place. It's funny because I'm in a similar situation now where I'm in a new place that was kind of unexpected to live in, and I'm creating a new community, meeting new people. Like I'm in the same space, and I had this desire to create and to be creative, and it's been really fun. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope that I do provide value going forward. Oh my god, I just went on another like long ass tangent. So, getting back into the whole fear and excitement aspect of things. When you feel fear over something, your heart starts going, you start sweating, maybe you have butterflies in your stomach. And excitement, it's the same thing. Butterflies in your stomach, heart, everything. So I think it's really important to know that when you are going through your daily life, because I think a lot of the time we as humans confuse one with the other when we're experiencing it. I definitely did for a long time. I would have an experience where the true experience I was having was fear, but my body and mind kind of tricked me into thinking it was excitement. So when I was in a pretty volatile relationship, there was a lot of fear there, but because I loved the person, it turned it into like, oh, this is just passionate love, and went more towards excitement. And I think in relationships, it's definitely really important to reflect on your experience and to sit with yourself and to process different emotions and different feelings, because we can often confuse ourselves with different things. Fear, excitement, that's all like a lot of hormones going through. People say that falling in love is like there's the same amount of drugs going through your head than hard drugs that you take. So it's addicting. That fear, excitement, adrenaline rush is addicting. And the heightened cortisol levels, all that kind of stuff, all the hormones pumping through our bodies, we get used to that. And then if that's not there anymore, we think there's something wrong. So if you've been in a relationship kind of like I have, where fear and excitement and all these heightened emotions were the norm, and also like really, really down, really, really up, like back and forth, then moving into a relationship that's more calm and safe might feel boring or might feel not right. And I just think that understanding yourself and understanding that fear and excitement does show up in the same way in your body can really help that process of reframing your mindset of what is this and where is this actually coming from. Because if you're not even aware of the fact that fear, anxiety, excitement, all these feelings show up the same way in your body, when you feel a certain way, you might just automatically go to one way or the other. And that is not always the best scenario. I think it's always a good idea to sit back and to process and think and sit with your feelings and try to decipher where they're coming from so that we have a more accurate representation and understanding of how we're feeling in whatever moment. And with more practice, this will be easier to do instantly. So when you're in the situation, it'll be easier to kind of figure it out. But until then, I think it's important to just be cognizant of it and be aware of it and understand that this is just a reality for every single human, and it's just how our body is wired. I think that another important aspect to remember is that we have the power to shift the mindset of where that feeling is going to go. So what I mean by that is, say that you feel fear and dread and anxiety and all these kind of quote unquote negative emotions, and we sit with it and we think to ourselves, this could be excitement. I'm just going to choose to believe that this is excitement. That is totally doable. And I know that from experience. I will sit and I will journal and I will write out all the reasons why I'm fearful of a certain thing, whether it's a new relationship, a new job, a new hobby, whatever that might be. I like to sit and think and write out my emotions, my thoughts, and how I'm actually feeling. And a lot of the time, that action of just getting it out on paper is enough for me to be able to reflect and process what it is that I'm thinking and what it is I'm feeling, and be able to more accurately decide what it is that I'm going to do about it. So a lot of the time when we feel fearful about something, it's easy to just run away. It's easy to give up. It's easy to drop it all and just keep moving. And then 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line, this thing that you were scared of might come back, and you might think, oh my gosh, what was it that made it so scary 10 years ago, whereas now it doesn't seem as scary. So for me, if you can't tell, I'm talking about content creation and I'm talking about being on YouTube. 10 years ago, I was extremely scared. I was so fearful of everything, of failing, of how I'm going to be perceived, how I'm going to look, my editing skills, my filming skills, all of the above. And now the fear is still there, but I'm choosing to act differently. I'm choosing to go for it, because if it comes back to me every single year of this thought of wanting to do something, the desire to create something and to put myself out there is continuously coming back, then obviously it's something I want to do. And the fear I was feeling might have been just excitement of the possibilities, the endless possibilities of what this could be. I've already met so many cool people through my podcast and doing YouTube, and I'm in no way considered a successful content creator by the generic population standards. However, for me and my own standards, I think I'm incredibly successful in this already, because A, I'm enjoying doing it, B, I'm meeting some amazing people, and C, I'm creating content that can give some value to a community that I care about. So I think that understanding the power behind a mindset shift between fear and excitement, it is just an incredible way for us to be more fearless in our choices and jump into things that we actually want to do and that we want to care about. And for some of you, you might already know this. You might already live your life fearlessly, or you might even get adrenaline from facing your fears and for doing different things that people might find too scary. If that's your vibe, then that's cool. But I think that this shift and understanding what fear and excitement can look like in the body was just such a game changer for me. And it is something that I do have to constantly work on and remind myself. It's something that I have to be cognizant and aware of, because I forget all the time and I think, oh my gosh, this is scary, I shouldn't do it. And then I have to do my journaling or do my reflection and actually think, where is this coming from? What is this? And why is it scary? And I decided that it's scary because I care about it, which means I probably should do it, which is why I'm here making content. So whether you are trying to decide on making the leap to start a new business, to go back to school, to start a family, get married, change something in your life, move to a new country, whatever that might be, if there's fear and anxiety there, I would love it if you could take a moment to see if that fear is coming from a place of fear of failure because you care so much about it, or is it actually fearful because it is something that you should be afraid of? Which is also fine, but it just means that you will protect yourself in the process. It's just being more self-aware and more conscious of the steps that you're taking and the actions you're making to get to where you want to go. I think allowing yourself to be afraid and stepping into it and leaning into it and just attempting something with the possibility of failure being a very real thing is the bravest thing anyone can do. And I have to remind myself of that constantly. And I have to give myself the same support as I would anybody else. If any of my friends were to tell me that this is something that they were doing, I would support them wholeheartedly. And I think that understanding ourselves deeper is just generally something that I just could talk about for hours and hours. But in this sense, I think it's just so important to do the work to reflect and figure out where things are coming from so that we can be more self-compassionate in our choices and the mistakes and the failures and everything that comes our way in the future. If you've stayed with me this long, thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you are joining me in the morning, I hope you have a wonderful day. If you're joining me in the evening, I hope you have a lovely, restful night of sleep, and I'll see you next time. Bye.